Hi, it's Chris. I'm so glad you're here. This channel is all about learning systems and leading change. In order to do that, we have to understand what's really going on in our country. And this video is really all about busting some myths that we hear each and every day. The first question I'm going to tackle is, shouldn't poor people just have to work harder and then they can have the American dream? After all, we have examples of self-made millionaires and billionaires. At least that's the stories we get told. Well, here's the thing. When you look back and do analysis for what someone entering 30 years old in the 1950s versus 1980s versus today are really going through, and just look at the overall snapshot of the economic landscape they're in, it becomes pretty clear. It's not just a matter about working harder. In fact, a median US households are working more hours today than they ever have in the past. We're producing more per hour today than we ever have in the past. In fact, workers today are generally producing about 7 times as much as what we were in the 1950s, and yet we're being paid less on average. I'm going to walk you through a couple graphs here because I think they'll illustrate who we should really be focused on for blame. And it's not poor people and their work ethic. It's also not immigrants. Yes, there are some studies I've seen out there that showing immigrants being willing to work for a lot less wages is dragging down wages by 0.5% or something like that. I guess you can make that case. I've seen the studies. I don't find them compelling. What I do find compelling are these graphs. The first one I want to share with you, is the CEO to worker pay ratios. This ratio from 1965 to the 80s, pretty flat. CEOs always earn more. And you know what? They have the responsibility of the entire future of the company, and they have the responsibility for working harder. They're in jobs that maybe do produce more value than a typical worker. I'm not arguing they don't. But it's interesting to see that once we did an entire tax overhaul in the 80s, that set into motion this idea of shareholder supremacy, which is something I would like to do a deep dive on in a different video. If you'd like to hear that, throw shareholder supremacy as a quote down in the comments, and we'll prioritize that if we see enough comments. Well, after that happened, CEO to worker compensation ratio grew dramatically. Today, they're earning anywhere from 300 to 400, even sometimes I've seen some analyses say as much as 500 times the average worker. It's hard to imagine a world where a CEO is literally 500 times more productive than one of their employees. But every company only has one CEO. Is that really the problem? Well, here's where we want to look at a couple of different groups in the economic ladder. And that's where we're going to look at the entire US population and look at different economic tiers over time. In this next graph, you'll see from the 1970s to now, the lower income, the group, the people, which by the way, makes up a vast majority of the country, is decreasing the amount of income that they have. In 1970, it's about 10%. In 2020, it's about 8%. It's been a negative decline the entire time. The middle class, the green line, this is supposed to be the strength of our entire economy, has gone from 63% of the income in any given year down to 42%. That's a big decline. And then you have to look at the last line, the only line that's positive, upper 10%. It's gone from 28% of the income all the way up to 50%. I think this makes a pretty clear argument that immigrants and poor people are not to blame. We are making more money as a country than we ever have in our entire history. It's just going to less and less people. The last graph I want to point you to is really talking about how workers have been left behind. This has 3 lines, really simple. Wages are actually overall down from the 1970s to now, and even more so if you go back to the 1950s. Productivity has done nothing but go up. So we are working more and producing more per hour than we ever have as a working class part of American society. Then you have the orange line, corporate profits. Again, going back to the 1980s when we did a massive tax code overhaul that basically told companies the only thing you can do is seek to maximize your profits. And that's exactly what we do. We maximize our profits. From right before that tax overhaul to now, profits and profit margins, and we can dive deep into what that means, have all more than doubled. Again, we are producing more wealth in this country every single year than we ever have before. There is actually a ton to go around. And when you hear folks on the left or progressive leaders or economists or historians talking about wealth redistribution, we all talk about it as though it's a socialist thing to talk about wealth redistribution from the top to the bottom. What we aren't talking about yet, what we need to start talking about a lot more, is how much more wealth redistribution are we going to allow from the bottom to the top? It's not that people are not working hard. People are working more hours today than they ever have, particularly when you look at household family data. It's not that we're not producing more. We're producing at historic rates. And with AI innovations and other things, each individual worker is likely to produce even more. But that wealth is going into corporate profits. You can talk about it as a tax on all of us. And I think it's about time we start asking ourselves, is this a fair system? And here's the thing. Anyone who wants to question this gets labeled a socialist. And if you want to hear a little bit more about political labels, I already made a video on that. We can go deeper and expand that out. Throw a comment if you want me to do that. At the end of the day, these are the basic cornerstones of our entire economy that I think every American should know. You don't have to be an economist to understand it. When I was running for state office, the number one thing I heard people be concerned about is overall affordability. And the thing that they want to do, if you're a Republican, is cut taxes. But when they cut taxes, as we've seen, it just goes to more profits. It doesn't actually make people's lives more affordable. That's what we need to be focused on. How can we create an affordable future where we can let business thrive, but in a way that is actually fair to people who are working day in and day out? So that's what my call to action for everyone here on this video is. Take a moment and think about what is actually fair, and then start asking people questions about it. Start asking your elected representatives about it, because the status quo of our current system of an economy is going to become more unfair if we don't do anything about it. But we can. We're in a country that is designed to change, but we have to learn the system so we can lead the change. That's what this channel is all about. Again, like every video, if you're like what you see here, or even if you don't, like, subscribe. Also, more importantly to me, put a comment down below. Ask a question. This is a judgment-free zone where we want to try to answer people's questions to the best of our ability. We're trying to make them easy to digest, so we will break up complex topics over multiple videos, but don't be afraid to ask a question. If enough people ask it, we'll answer it, and we'll even do the research we have to do. So thank you for your time and help change the world. If you haven't yet, please click like on this video, drop a comment below, and click that subscribe button. It'll help the YouTube algorithm make sure that these videos are getting into your feed. Thank you.